Powder funnels. They are a necessary part of the reloading process, and one of the questions I get on occasion is, does it really matter if you have a $30 powder funnel or a $200 powder funnel? Well, I've got them in front of me. We're gonna put them through their paces, and we're gonna see if it really matters when it comes to filling up a case. Let's go take a look. And here we have it. We have what I think is going to be a pretty good funnel test. Now, look, I will start by saying I realize this does not cover every funnel on the market. I'm going to go through 6 of the major funnels that I know of that are being used on a regular basis, but there are a lot of manufacturers out there that are not being covered in this video. And, you know, there's things like Saturn, there's cheaper RCBS, cheaper Hornady, just basic powder plastic funnels. There's a lot of different things out there. But again, I picked the 6 that I think represent probably the best offerings out there in terms of a complete kit or build or design. And you can kind of use it as a benchmark if there's some other funnel you're looking at that isn't on the table here. We're going to start off with the features of the Frankford Arsenal. Now, the Frankford Arsenal is going to be, of course, the least expensive, but that's not to say that it is by any means cheap. It is a very well-made funnel. It is on the slightly smaller side if I compare it to all the others. So it does have a smaller mouth on it, but it does use a nice O-ring friction fit adapter here. It is going to come with a wide range of your different adapters. And as far as the case goes, I think the case is pretty good. I mean, considering this is, like I said, right about 30 bucks right now on Amazon, it's really not a bad value. The only thing I don't like about the case, if I'm being critical, is that if you have, like, let's say I always use 284, it doesn't store in the box with that adapter on. So every time I use it, I would need to pull off the adapter and store it away, or obviously I can just leave the funnel on my bench. Next, we have the Lyman kit. Now, the Lyman kit is going to be very similar in terms of the offerings that the Frankford Arsenal had. It is a heavy, well-made cup as well. It does have a pour handle, which is exclusive to any of the kits that we're looking at. And for some people, having that handle is going to be a nice add-on. We also have the friction fit adapters here, and it does come with 6 of the most popular. Now, one thing I do like about the Lyman, and again, this one's just over 30 bucks, is that when you have the adapter on, it does fit back in the box. And Lyman also, to their credit, gives you a really nice little card here that has all of the possible uses. So if you have a particular cartridge you're looking at, you can pull it up and figure out which adapter you need if for some reason you don't know what that is. Then we move into the Hornady kit. Now, the Hornady is a little bit unusual for me out of all of these. It's the lightest weight. It's definitely not, you know, cheap. I mean, you're not gonna, you know, ruin it, but I can easily bend the Hornady. In fact, I can hear it moving as I squeeze on it. So if you were to have it on a reloading bench and let's say you drop something on it, I will say out of all of these funnels, this is the one that's going to get damaged the easiest. If it falls on the ground, it's definitely going to have some flex in it. Now, does that really affect operation? Probably not, but in terms of being perfectly round, it can probably get damaged the easiest out of all of these. It does use a screw-on adapter system, so you're going to have 9 options. They do screw on, which I think is nice. And for this particular box, you'll see that you can leave the adapter on if you want to store it away. So that's the Hornady. Then we move into the RCBS Matchmaster. And the RCBS Matchmaster is new this year. It's probably the newest of these funnels that's been offered. And it's going to come with 6 adapters, and these ones are also threaded, as you can see. And you're going to have the 6 most popular. Now, RCBS does not allow you to store very easily, but it does squish down. So it's not like super designed for it, but because of the extra padding in the case, it does let you pressure fit it on. So technically you can do that, but it doesn't really seem like it's designed for it. So this one you're definitely going to, if you're going to do long-term storage, most people are probably going to remove that and put the adapter back in the box. Next up, we have the Short Action Customs. Now, the Short Action Customs that I have here is just the funnel and one of the adapters because that's how I ordered it. But it does come as a kit, 4 of the adapters and an extension and a base plate to hold it all so you can keep it on your bench. So it's not a closed up case, but instead you can put it on the bench for storage. It's about average in terms of its diameter, which is something I didn't point out about the Hornady. The Hornady, if you look, is huge. So it does have a very large mouth on it, but I will say the RCBS is probably right in the middle of all of them. It's definitely bigger than if we look at the Frankford Arsenal, but it's going to be just a hair smaller than like the next one we're going to look at, which is the 419. So kind of in the middle, and that's about where the RCBS was as well. But anyway, and it's going to use, again, pressure fit inserts. One of the advantages I will say with this one is that with the Short Action Customs, these inserts are actually the same inserts that you use on their comparators. And so you don't need to buy additional parts if you already use a Short Action Custom set of calipers. You can just pop it in between each of them and you're saving a little bit of money there. And then lastly, we have the Area 419 kit. Again, I don't have the whole stand here because I've only gotten the funnel and adapter. And this one I am actually borrowing from a friend, but it has the 7 mil on it right here. It is a threaded adapter. It does screw on nicely. It does come in a kit with 6 plus a stand and no extension, but extensions are available for this one. To my knowledge, there are no extensions available for the RCBS yet, the Hornady, the Lyman, or the Frankford Arsenal, although I have heard rumors that the RCBS may have an extension available soon. And why does the extension matter? Well, especially for like ball powders or powders that you really want to make sure are getting good fill. If you're getting close to something like a compressed load, you just want to make sure that you are getting a good fill, and an extension can definitely help with that. Now that we've kind of looked at the basic functions, let's put them together and pour some powder through them. And here it is, possibly the most unscientific test you're gonna see, but I'm doing the best I can. I have an assistant off stage here with a timer. I have my funnels set up, and we have 60 grains in each cup of the triple nickel here. I picked that because it's pretty much a standard load for like a 7 SAUM. It's a couple grains more than I use in my PRCW, and 60 just seemed like a good round number. We're going to dump each one in using my regular powder cup that I use here, and we're gonna see if there's any difference. What do you think is gonna happen? Personally, I don't know that we're gonna see a huge difference, but I am curious, and I think it's a valid test. So we're going to go with the Frankford Arsenal first, and start, stop. And that came in at 0.94 seconds. We are now going to do the Lyman, and start, stop. That came in at 0.83 seconds. We have the Hornady, start, stop. 1.28 seconds. And I did feel like that one took a little bit longer. It does have a slightly longer tube on the end, so I think that accounted for some of the time there. This is the RCBS Matchmaster, and start, stop. 1.23 seconds. We then have the Short Action Customs, and start, stop. Right at 1 second. And finally, the Area 419, start, stop. 0.93 seconds. Well, look, we have to be honest. Some of that is me calling out the start stop, and some of that is the reaction time of the person on the other end. I think it's pretty safe to say that in general, these were all right about 1 second, plus or minus a hair. Some were just a little under, some were just a little bit over. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load up a giant load of powder, and we're gonna do the same test just to see how they actually flow on a continued basis. Now for something a little bit more admittedly absurd, we are going to be dropping 300 grains of powder, which conceivably nobody's really going to do, but I think the sustained flow will really help, I think, show some differences, or at least I'm expecting it to. So we are going to go with the Frankford Arsenal first again. Now I still have, it doesn't affect anything, but you can see the 60 grains is still in the bottom of the cup here. So we are going to, again, be timing off stage, and if we are ready, we are going to start, stop. and that was 4.13 seconds. Now to the Lyman and start. Stop. 3.96 seconds. And I am trying to just dump the entire cup in there best I can so that it is as equal as possible. We are now on the Hornady and start. Stop. 5.85 seconds, but something that I should note, and of course, as soon as I touched it to show you, there were 3 kernels stuck to the top here, so it did require a tap on that one. So not only did it take a little bit longer, but it did have a couple kernels that did not go in on their own. That's the first time we've had that happen. We are now moving on to the RCBS Matchmaster and start. Stop. 2.59 seconds. So I think that's the fastest so far. Make sure we get all the kernels out here. We're now on to the Short Action Customs and start. Stop. 5.23 seconds. And finally, the Area 419 funnel. And start. Stop. 5.31 seconds. And I have what appears to be there were 2 kernels stuck inside the fluting as I dropped it. Now, none of these bridged, which I'm a little surprised at because with that much powder, I thought for sure something was going to bridge somewhere. So that's a good sign as far as all of these funnels go. Let me just get this cleaned up and then we will wrap it up. So what does any of this prove? Well, I think it proves that the funnels have really come up lately. It used to be there was only a couple really top-end funnels that you could get that had replaceable tips and were really well machined and weren't some cheap plastic thing that could crack or eventually get brittle. And it shows that depending on your needs, there could be reasons you want to spend $20 or $30 or a couple hundred. And to be fair, I know the comments are probably going to be blasted with everything from you don't even need a $30 funnel. I have a $5 funnel to $200 is a waste. And I think it's really just going to come down to needs and to what you like preferential wise. There might be some people who like the Lyman for no other reason than it has the handle that you can, use to dump. I will say that the only thing that people might concern is, like I said, the Hornady one is definitely a thinner metal. And again, if you're abusive or you tend to drop a lot of things or, that kind of thing, it could potentially get bent before some of the others. Not to say the others can't be bent. I mean, metal's going to bend at some point. But the others definitely all have a more substantial feel to them. Some of it might come down to like the Short Action Customs where you can utilize the same tips for your comparators and it saves a little bit of money. Some of these are going to have an internal set of, this has some radial lines in it. The 419 has these lines in it, which, again, I was impressed that nothing bridged, even with 300 grains of powder. And that really surprised me. Now, there are potentials for very large kernel powders like Vihtavuori 570 or 50 BMG or some of these really big chunky powders, Rotumbo, stuff like that, where poured fast and in large quantities that you're typically going to be using with those powders might potentially pose a bridging problem in some of these, but I don't have any of those on hand, so I can't test them. Potentially in the future, if I can get my hands on some of those powders, I will definitely come back and revisit it. But in terms of my normal use, and I think a majority of people's normal use, most of these powder funnels actually held up really well. You saw in the timing, some on 60 grains were, just a few fractions of a second faster or slower. Really, let's be honest, on a throw like that, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. If you're throwing 300, 400, 500 charges, we're talking about adding up to a few extra minutes or so. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I think you need to look at what are your needs, what are you looking for? Are you more controlled in your throw and you don't mind having something a little bit smaller, therefore a little bit less expensive kit is okay? Do you need something that has, thread on because you prefer threads? Do you prefer something that has, the pressure fit with an O-ring like the Short Action Customs and a couple of the others over here, the Lyman and the Frankfurt? Do you need something with an extension? If you do, then something like the Short Actions or the Area 419 are going to be your choice. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of really great powder funnels out there, and there's going to be something that meets your need. I hope that at least doing a basic overview of the funnels themselves, what they offer, and what they do in terms of performance will help you pick one out. I have links to all of these in my description below, so if you want to take a look at them and what packages are currently offered, you can find all of that in the description below. With that, I do hope you get a chance to get out and shoot, have some fun reloading, and we will talk later.